Hello, this is Brian again. Welcome to part 2 of my own little plant adventure in my own living quarters. So, part 1, I discussed the non-native plants that are growing here on my patio. That's, a fairly small amount. I basically covered a lot of the species of non-natives. And just to add a couple more to the list of non-natives to California, got black poplar here, Populus nigra. It's down to its last few leaves. It's basically dormant for winter. I want to add another species or two because I do have quite a variety of those as well. And let's see, of course, Mexican fan palms, Washingtonia robusta. These guys came up on their own. They germinate on their own, but these are rescue seedlings I got a few years ago. These fan palms here. And I got dwarf pomegranates, Vinica granatum. So the dwarf types, and actually mostly evergreen as opposed to the usually deciduous types. Okay, well, I think we talked enough about the non-native plants. Now I want to go into the native plants, and that's where this gets to be more involved because I have a lot more native plants, and also plants that are near natives. In other words, native to near California. I want to add that a little bit in there. Okay, so I got a lot, so bear with me. Okay, now we're talking about the natives. Here's a plant that you might have heard me discuss a few times. This is called Coast Golden Bush, Isocoma Menziesii variety Veranoides. This one here, this individual, I germinated from seed back in 2014. I think it was 2014 or late 2013. And these can grow well over your head, but since they're in a compact environment, they've grown a lot smaller. So this is one of the original ones that I germinated from seed. Now, these plants have a tendency to spread and germinate in different spots. So this is one of the original ones I planted. Now, this one here is a volunteer that came up by itself a couple years ago. And it's already flowered, gone to seed, just like the original is flowered and gone to seed. And I got the seed from this somewhere in Fullerton. So this is a descendant of this. This golden bush is also a descendant of this. Like I said, it's original. So obviously they get cross-pollinated because I used to have multiple plants in here. These ones have kind of declined over the last few years. Probably I'm not sure how long they live. I wouldn't be surprised if they live for several years. They're a woody-based subshrub, but I don't think they're extraordinarily long-lived. Okay, and here's California buckwheat right here, Eriogonum fasciculatum variety fasciculatum. This is one of the common natives you'll find growing here in Southern California in the lowlands. And you got varieties that grow, like variety Poliolisum, that grow further inland, and variety Polifolium that grow high in the mountains and also in the more interior cold winter climates. This is the more coastal variety right here, variety fasciculatum. I have two plants in here, kind of hard to see, but I have two of them. They have flowered on a couple of occasions. They didn't flower this year. They were going through a very, very polar decline phase, but then all of a sudden they started going crazy and growing out more. So I expect these will probably flower again next year. In fact, I was able to get a volunteer seedling came up in another pot, but it only lasted about a year. Okay. Now, we're looking at this little guy here. Fortunately, this one here is not looking so hot. And we've got another one here. I just need to trim these weeds out. This is Chaparral Yucca, Hesperor Yucca Whippley. You might have seen me talk about this plant, especially when I'm hiking a chaparral and in the mountains. But This is that plant that gets real spiky leaves and it forms a rounded rosette. And it's the one that's gonna hurt if you bump into it. But that's chaparral yucca. And I germinated this at the end of last year. This is from the cespitose form that I came across in the desert side of the San Gabriel Mountains. That's where the seed was collected. And so this is the type that forms multiple rosettes from the same root system. The ones here in Orange County usually form a single rosette, and that one rosette will send up a flower and the whole plant will die. The cespitose form, like this, these ones will produce multiple pups. Little pup, kind of like this Vercria foetida. It'll pup like that. So one rosette will flower, fruit, and die, and the other rosettes will keep the clone going. So I got the cespitose form. Okay. So I could say that I have a pride and joy, but they're all pride and joy to me. Okay. Here's one plant that I talked about this plant on last week's video about the Santa Ana Mountains. Black cottonwood, Populus trichocarpa. So you see here they're very late to lose their leaves. We're in December now. Mine don't always lose all their leaves, but you can keep these in pots for a while, but eventually if you plant them in the ground, they'll explode and grow like crazy. This is one of the fastest growing trees we have. Here's another example of black cottonwood here, and it's starting to get a little yellow fall color on it. Okay, now here's a plant. Okay, back to this. To get these going, these ones, I didn't germinate the seeds of these. These ones I grew from cuttings. I took the cuttings back in February of 2014 and stuck them in water, and they rooted. They became cottonwoods themselves. Now this tree right here is an Engelmann oak, Quercus engelmannii. I grew this one from an acorn. This one I collected the acorns. They started sprouting before I even planted them, and booyah, I got an Engelmann oak. I used to have at least two of them, but the last one died a good few years ago, so I don't have that one any longer. Okay, now here's a plant I did not grow from seed. I bought it in a nursery. It's called Winifred Gilman sage. I believe it's a hybrid between, I want to say, purple and Cleveland sage. It smells more like Cleveland sage. The flowers are colored more like Cleveland sage. So I believe it has more Cleveland sage in its DNA, but it's representative of likely a hybrid between two different types of native sages here in Southern California. And here's one you'll find mostly in San Diego County, maybe Baja California. This is Palmer sagewort, Artemisia palmeri, Palmer sagewort. It's related to the sagebrushes, and it also has a fragrant smell to it. So now, here's another Artemisia. This is from a root system the old stems have died on. This is mugwort, Artemisia dracunculus. So it's called sagewort, or should I say mugwort? Mugwort's a more appropriate name for it, but it is very closely related to Palmer sagewort. It hasn't come back as vigorously as it has in the last few years, so unfortunately I don't know how much longer I have with it. But I had one that I bought at a nursery in 2014, and then that original colony started declining, so I took some soft cuttings, in other words newer cuttings that didn't harden, and there I had. They were growing. Okay, this is a plant I have a lot of growing here on my patio, and this is called coyote brush, Baccharis salicifolia subspecies consanguinea. This plant will self-seed itself into your garden, so be aware. This one right here is not one of the original ones that I had collected seeds from and germinated. This is one of the volunteers, and this was just a few years ago, so these things can grow fast. My original ones are over here. Some of my original ones are over here, and apparently you got male and female plants, so I had a female plant here, And then here's one here. It's kind of hard to see. I can still find it in here. Yeah, it's hard to tell. But I've had them self-seed into my garden. Okay, and here's a close relative right here. This is called Broombaccarus. This is from seed I collected in San Diego, in a Claremont neighborhood where the plant grows in the canyons and even in neighborhoods nearby. Very closely related and can hybridize with coyote brush. And this is Baccarus cerathoides. So while we're talking about that, they are also very easy to germinate from seed, the Broombaccarus. So that's why I have that nice beautiful shrub. It's a male. These are both dioecious. Male and female plants are separate, coyote brush and Broombaccarus. This is a male plant. But I have some females over here, and these females might actually have hybrid DNA with coyote brush, because some of the leaves are quite different, but I got these seeds from a Broombaccarus. So there might be coyote brush DNA, and there are coyote brush in the area from where I collected it in San Diego. So for another species of Baccarus, we have mule fat. And this is another very easy to germinate, and it will self-seed itself in every nook and cranny of your garden if enough moisture is present. This is mule fat, Baccarus salicifolia, subspecies salicifolia. Another very easy to grow plant, very fast growing, and can grow far over your head if given enough space. And these are actually volunteers from my original plants. My original plants are over here from 2015, and they're in a stage of decline, unfortunately. But I'm not worried about running out of mule fat anytime soon, because I got more plants that have come up in here. I have some in that pot, and of course I have the big ones in this pot. So I'm not at all worried about running out of mule fat. Let's take a look at a few other natives that I have here. This is one that I did not grow from a seed, but this is a scrub oak, Quercus berberidifolia. You see my videos where I'm pointing out scrub oak while I'm hiking in Chaparral? Well, there it is. And of course, I got Toyon. I might have mentioned that I've grown these from seed before. And see, this one even has fruit on it. This is the second year in a row this guy has fruited. But these ones fruited last year, 2019, and the pomes are still there. So I got a little bit of the chaparral growing here. I'm really proud of it. That's not the only thing I have in here. I also have polyleaf cherry, Prunus salicifolia, subspecies salicifolia. Just like the Toyons, I grew that from seed as well. And polyleaf cherry is supposed to have a pretty low viability, but I was able to get two of the cherries to sprout, and one of them just couldn't make it, and the one that you just saw there did. And I didn't do anything special. I soaked it in water. I soaked the pits in water. They started splitting. I planted them. They germinated. So I didn't do anything special. I didn't stratify them. The most I did was maybe water scarify them, like letting them soften up in water a little bit. And we also got some other interesting plants here too, I want to point out. Now, I used to have a lot more of these, but I even have a California sycamore. I used to have like 10, 15 of them, but one by one over the last few years they ended up giving up on me because, you know, I haven't been as attentive like I should be. So that's a California sycamore, Platanus racemosa. And these are two coast live oaks here. One of them is kind of forming its own bonsai. It's Quercus agrifolia, variety agrifolia. Then I got a near native, and the taxonomy of this plant's in question. So I'm just going to go based on the separation of species of the cypress. I got Arizona cypress here, Hesperus epiris arizonica. And I usually do not have very good luck with coniferous trees, usually conifers. But these ones have been a glaring counterexample of my luck with conifers. I've had Jeffrey pine, ponderosa pine, single-leaf pinyon pine. I've had sugar pine before. I've even had Pacific Douglas fir seedlings. The only ones that lasted out of those were the Pacific Douglas firs I had for about 2 years before they finally gave out. But now I got Arizona cypress. These I did germinate in 2017. I bought the seeds online. I didn't collect them. and I stratified them for about 2 months, and they started splitting in the bag. I soaked them, stratified them. The seeds started sending up roots, so I planted them. Okay, here we go. This is telegraph weed, or telegraph aster, Heterotheca grandiflora, and just wanted to see if I can get those to come up, and they came up within a couple of days of planting them. These ones are special. These are Hazardia squarosa variety grandelioides. Sawtooth golden bush. I had my eyes on growing these for years. These are small subshrubs, and they don't have really exorbitant flowers. They're kind of like discoid, yellowish flowers. And to the average person, they may not look really that interesting, but it's just something interesting in my book. I think it's interesting, and I wanted to grow them, and those seeds came up in a couple of days. I just got them to come up it was the middle of October. And this one's a scarlet bugler, Penstemon centranthifolius. I don't know, I guess I didn't need to scarify these seeds. I thought they'd need fire scarification, but I just planted them, had a bunch of them come up, but now I'm down to one left. And these ones get red flowers in the spring and summer months when they get big. So I'm really happy to have a Penstemon. I always wanted to grow Penstemon, and now I'm growing it. Okay, here's another pride of my collection here. Now, I'm not going to talk much about this yucca yet, because I'm going to come back to that. But these, you might have seen my some of my hiking videos where I talk about desert almond, Prunus fasciculata variety fasciculata. Well, I have germinated them too, and they're looking like miniature shrubs. And then right in the middle, I have some type of native yucca, which I'm about to go into now. I told you about my chaparral yucca, Hespero yucca whippley. Well, I also have Joshua trees. Then I need to split them up and plant them individually. But these are Yucca brevifolias. These are Joshua tree seedlings. So I have a bunch of those, and I need to spread them out. Now, this is going to be hard to see, so bear with me. But right in here, I told you I had single-leaf pinion, Pinus monophylla. Well, the ones that I planted originally died out this summer because it just got too dry and got too hot for them, and I didn't have them protected as well. Well, this one's growing underneath. This is a single-leaf pinion seedling that germinated on its own. I had these cones here, single-leaf pinion cones, and I guess a seed that was still viable fell out and became that. So that's a single-leaf pinion seedling. Now, so that yucca is either a Joshua tree or a chaparral yucca, so I can't really tell yet. Alright, now this is probably one of the biggest things I've ever had happen to me growing plants. And that is these little seedlings here. These are common chamise, Adenosema fasciculatum variety fasciculatum, that I collected from the Santa Ana mountain range. So I have a couple pots here, and you can see these little green specks here. These are seedlings. These are chamise seedlings. So I tried them in 3 different pots. This one, and this one. But you notice, this one doesn't have anything germinating. So I did 3 different methods to see if I can get these to germinate, knowing that they generally germinate after fire scarification. Well, in this pot that doesn't have anything in it, I just planted the seeds outright. I didn't do anything special, and that's not a seedling right there, it's just a broken off leaf from something else. I planted the seeds without doing anything, just put the seeds in dirt and watered them. Nothing happened. Not surprised, I expected that. So I did 2 other methods here too. So for this one, what I did is I put the seeds on the dirt, put a very thin layer of soil on top of the seeds, then put dried plant material on top, mostly from dried twigs from my native plants here, and burned the soil on top. And that was back in mid-October of this year. So almost 2 months ago. So that's what I did for this one. For this one, I did something a little different. What I did is I put duff. In other words, I put the seed duff on top of the soil, and then I burned it, and then I put the seeds and a thin film of soil on it. And this is what got the first germination, probably from the smoke and charate, from all the twigs that I had burnt. And that's probably why these had come up first. You can see this guy here, well, it's kind of hard to see with the camera, but chamois starts off with three lobed leaves. They start out with 3 lobed leaves. That's their seedling juvenile leaves. So that's what first germinated. So again, soil, duff, burn the duff, then put the seeds and a thin film of soil on it. This one